Nothing is ever due to one problem exclusively. However, gender bias plays out in a lot of ways. And there are a lot of reasons why the numbers of women in tech have actually gone down significantly over the years, as opposed to increasing. And as a matter of fact, when the tech sector started, it was typically considered a women's profession.
Why have the numbers gone down, do you think?
Well, there are a whole host of reasons, but the biggest problem is actually retention. Yes, women are less drawn to certain fields than others. Some of that has to do with cultural issues, social issues, et cetera. However, about 25% of women, of graduates in STEM, in all fields of STEM, including computer engineering, have been women, even now, and yet the number of women that go into the tech sector is actually far less than the women that graduate in the field. There are a lot of women that train on their own, including myself. I'm a self-taught software engineer. And the vast majority of women actually leave. And there are a whole host of reasons, but the number one reason is people don't stay in jobs where they're not happy. They don't feel comfortable.
And Andrea, do you think that the women are uncomfortable because they are treated poorly at these places?
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. But the primary problem with this argument is, of course, that the author undercuts any attempt to trigger a meaningful conversation because of the factual inaccuracies. And if the author had taken a bit of time to, say, Google the assertions before making them, he would have discovered a host of literature from Harvard Business Review to a series of international peer-reviewed publications that demonstrate that his assertions were simply factually inaccurate.
Such as?
For example, there's an assertion that the numbers of women entering technology professions in other countries mirror those numbers in the United States. That is not accurate. And in fact, if you look at the numbers of women entering technology professions in Russia and in China and in other countries with a different social structure and different cultural dynamics at play, the critique of some sort of inherent
But Andrea,
gender
you know what
bias
some people
quickly
would say to
breaks
that?
down.
You know what they'd say? Silicon Valley is way more successful in their tech situation, their tech operations, than any of those other countries.
Well, I don't think that's accurate, particularly in information security. If you look at the Russian information security sector, those are best-of-breed security professionals. So I think that's
so in
a little too
cybersecurity,
quick
places
to
like
dismiss
Russia
that.
and things like that are better.
They are at least on par.
Vivek, what do you think?
I agree with a lot of what Andrea said. But, you know, we need to look at this memo very carefully because it tells you what the problem in Silicon Valley is. The problem is ignorance. The problem is that this is the way the boys club thinks. If you went to the venture capital community and asked them, they would say exactly the same things that this memo does. And this gets to the heart of the problem, that we've got this ignorance, this sexism, you know, it's often racism that lies beneath. We're not even talking about the fact that there are no blacks and Hispanics mentioned over here. Aren't black and Hispanic men competent as white
Vivek,
men or Indian men?
Do you disagree that a lot of times the message is that the reason you don't see advancement of all the groups that you mentioned is exclusively institutional racism and bias that we, in theory, can't see within ourselves? And maybe there are, and because of that, we end up excluding a lot of other issues and discussion points that have been brought up by Andrea and Chaya.
I would actually flip this conversation a little bit, if you don't mind, and say this person is an employee at Google. He's an engineer who spoke out, and he has had a few colleagues who've agreed with him. And I think that his attitude is actually part of the problem. I don't believe that, I mean, Google's come out publicly, but I have no reason to believe that this is Google's opinion. Overall, the company certainly doesn't try to take that stance, but there are plenty of programmers at Google that have gender biases, including the author of this article. And the programmer culture, all that stuff, those are things that make women uncomfortable. Those are biases that exist in the community. And he's simply highlighting his own biases and stating he's part of the problem without realizing that's what he's saying.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.